Hello, I'm Charles Raffaele, a doctoral student in the PhD program in educational psychology at the Graduate Center in the City University of New York. And I'd like to thank today Dr. Dale Schunk of the University of North Carolina at Greensboro for being here today for an interview. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me.
Now, the first question I'd like to ask you is if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your research.
Okay, well, I was born and I grew up in Chicago, and I did my undergraduate work at the University of Illinois, the main campus at Urbana-Champaign. My undergraduate major was psychology, and after that I spent some time in the Air Force, and while I was in the Air Force I picked up a master's degree in education from Boston University, and that was really important, and it got me very much interested in education. So after I left the Air Force, and I applied to go to a doctoral program, and I ended up out at Stanford, out in California, where my major was basically psychological studies in education. At that point, I ended up taking a course from Albert Bandura, and this was just about the time that he was developing self-efficacy theory. And I became really interested in that. I was very interested in learning motivation, and it seemed like that just fit so well that it just seemed like a natural link, like self-efficacy maybe could be used in educational research to explore the link between students and how they learn and how well they achieve and the like. So that's what I did. I did my dissertation on that, and he was my dissertation advisor. And after that, then I ended up in some different faculty positions, first at the University of Houston, then at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and then at Purdue University in Indiana. And at Purdue I also was a department chair, and then after I left Purdue I moved to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro as Dean of the School of Education. I served as Dean for 10 years and then stepped down from that and joined the faculty at UNC Greensboro, where I remain today.
Also, I'd like to ask you if you could tell us in some detail about your program of research generally.
Right. Well, after I got interested in Bandura's work and, of course, his theoretical framework of social cognitive theory, and I became very interested in trying to determine how various sorts of instructional and social influences affected learning and motivation, and particularly their role with self-efficacy. So I initially conducted several studies just looking at that issue. What are some important influences on self-efficacy while students are engaged in learning? And so the content I used for those studies was real school content. It was mathematics, or it was writing, or it was reading comprehension, for example. And trying to then, through different kinds of interventions, take a look at how we might be able to build students' sense of efficacy as well as help them learn. And so that was really the thrust of much of my early research. Subsequently, then I became very interested in the topic of self-regulation, and that was with Barry Zimmerman, of course, with collaboration with him. And we wrote several pieces on that, taking a look at how social cognitive theory could be applied in the context of self-regulated learning. And so a number of my studies that I did then really were oriented toward that end, teaching students self-regulatory skills, examining the role of various kinds of self-regulatory processes, such as goal setting and strategy use and adaptation, various kinds of motivational influences that occur during self-regulation as important components about helping students become better self-regulated learners.
Okay, thank you. And I'd also like to ask you, given that you've had a prolific output as a writer, authoring or co-authoring multiple books and many journal articles and book chapters, how do you balance keeping up a steady stream of writing while you're performing your other professional responsibilities?
Well, I try to practice what I preach. Here, I just got done saying I work in self-regulation. It takes self-regulation. It takes all the important processes we know. A lot of goal setting, for example. Weekly goals, monthly goals, daily goals, things I want to try to accomplish, monitoring how I'm doing on these things, time management, being skills of being the utmost as far as how much time I can devote and trying to clear out distractions so that I can really focus. And so it really comes down to that, being somewhat tough on myself about it, but say, well, you know, if I'm going to write for a couple hours today, then I say, when am I going to write for 2 hours today? Where am I going to do it? The same kinds of things that I teach my students right now, I have to apply to myself. And it's difficult when you've got a lot of responsibilities and a lot of other things to do. As you say, I mean, I was a full-time administrator for 17 and a half years, first as department chair and then as dean. And in that time, I did manage to keep up my writing agenda pretty well, and to some degree also my research agenda. But it just all came down to good self-regulation and setting goals, monitoring, deciding what I want to do, what strategies I was going to use, and the like.
And finally, I'd like to ask you if you could give 3 tips to graduate students currently working on a doctoral degree.
Right, and that is certainly a difficult time. We talk about a lot to do when you get to that point. First of all, I think motivation is critical. And for starters, pick a topic that you're interested in, that you like. This is the topic you're going to be dealing with for a long time in one form or another. And so it should be something that not only are you initially interested in, but that you're going to be able to maintain your motivation over time. And doctoral study is a grind, and it's full of ups and downs. And you have to have a topic that you like and you believe is important, and that you feel is worth spending part of your life on. After all, you're going to devote a good portion of a few years to this topic, and so it should be something that you say, yes, I think this is important for whatever reason, and I want to devote time and attention to it. And that helps maintain your motivation, determining your progress, how you're coming along on your topic, what you have to do, what you've done already. That's important in maintaining your sense of self-efficacy for being able to be successful. So one tip is you have to devote some attention to not only getting interested in a topic, getting motivated in a topic, but staying motivated, particularly at the times when things get rough. Second tip is self-regulation. It's a long project. Your long-term goal is to finish, but you don't do that overnight. So what do you have to do leading up to that? Well, there's certain things you have to do as far as dissertations are concerned. And so what are the major goals? What are the major checkpoints along the way? What are your time limits for yourself? And again, you have to apply good self-regulation to see that to the end, because it's going to be tough at times. And thirdly, I'd recommend form a network. You're not alone in this. A lot of other people who have similar interests to yourself, coming to conferences like AERA, for example, and talking with other people, and you start to form that professional network, and that's really going to be important, because these are people you can contact, you can discuss issues with. You can correspond with them, talk to them on the phone, email them, whatever, any way possible. But you form that network so that you get to the point where you learn who other people are who are interested in these special interest groups at AERA, like this one, the Studying Self-Regulated Learning Group. That's a great place to meet people who have similar interests. And again, you get the social feedback, social support, helps that you maintain your motivation over time. and can lead you on to a very satisfying experience in completing your doctoral requirements.
Thank you very much for your time today. I found your answers to the questions very interesting, and I know all of our viewers will. And once again, I'd like to thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you, Charles. I appreciate the opportunity.